Welcome to Dark Corners Classics.
We're about to unfold the story of Frankenstein.
The Universal horror cycle ran for 25 years, got the studio through the Great Depression, and started the career of a brace of horror icons.
How do you like that, eh?
The series borrowed heavily from European cinema and the European talent embraced by studio head Carl Laemmle, then gave it a very American commercial spin, creating a body of films unique in cinema history.
I bid you welcome.
The cycle started in 1931 with Tod Browning's Dracula, but the jewels in its crown are the Frankenstein films of British director James Whale. Bela Lugosi's Dracula is a performance to be reckoned with, but the film itself was stilted and stagey. Frankenstein, by contrast, embraced the medium and made a mockery of the supposed restrictions of early sound film. Whale allied gothic imagery with theatrical performances.
It's alive!
To a film that is defiantly cinematic in its scope.
Fritz!
Orson Welles is given much credit for showing the ceilings of his sets in Citizen Kane, but Whale does it a decade earlier. He understood the power of the camera, and with the help of Arthur Edison, one of the great silent film cinematographers, and Paul Ivano, he created an atmospheric world that many would try to emulate, few successfully. The centrepiece of the film is the experiment itself, a tour de force of filmmaking, unequalled through the entire Universal canon.
Oh, in the name of God, now I know what it feels like to be God.
But Whale's greatest achievement was the creature. Bill Condon's 1998 film Gods and Monsters, based on Christopher Bram's book Father of Frankenstein, suggests that the director's sexuality helped him identify with the creature's victimised outsider status. But whatever the reason, there is no doubt where Whale's sympathy lies. And he is aided in this by a superb piece of casting. Boris Karloff, real name William Henry Pratt, was 44 and had been in film for 12 years when he was offered the role that would make him a star and give him a career he could never have imagined. Most horror of the 30s and 40s had a black and white viewpoint. Monsters bad, humans good. Karloff and Whale embraced the shades of grey. No! Frankenstein's creation never asked to be made. He is as much the victim of the horror as its cause. Peering from beneath the heavy forehead of Jack Pierce's iconic makeup, Karloff gave the monster a soul that seems wholly contrary to his abnormal brain. He is a child who, mistreated by the world, lashes back at it. Although Whale changed Mary Shelley's novels significantly, his eagerness to address such huge themes as the nature of humanity and the monstrosity within ourselves make Frankenstein, even levelled against the greats of European silent cinema, the greatest horror film yet made. A title it would hold on to for 4 years, until...
I do think it a shame, Mary, to end your story quite so suddenly.
That wasn't the end at all.
With Bride of Frankenstein, Whale determined not to simply repeat himself. He took all he had learned on the first film and other films like The Old Dark House and The Invisible Man and poured it into an exquisitely well-judged sequel that balances horror, comedy,
My first experiment was so lovely that we made her a queen.
and above all, tragedy, to create one of the all-time masterpieces of the genre. To an even greater extent than before, Karloff dominates. Whale even managing to get away with comparing the monster to Christ. And this time the creature is given a clearer character arc, from anger, through hope,
Woman, friend, why?
and to despair.
She hate me, like others.
He is allowed to discover kindness and happiness before they are cruelly ripped from him.
Friend!
This taste of friendship makes the monster yearn for more, and that desperation lands him as the puppet of the evil Dr. Pretorius.
I think you can be very useful.
How many horror film monsters act out of a desire to be loved?
Friend.
There were several notable additions to the first film. Technology and taste had now moved on, and Whale was able to have a full incidental score by Franz Waxman, including leitmotifs for the principal characters. and this time the monster would talk.
Friends, good.
A decision that Karloff strongly opposed. But the best addition has to be Elsa Lanchester as
the bride of Frankenstein.
Almost as iconic as her would-be hubby, she is an elemental creation, leaving an indelible impression in her brief screen time, before inflicting the ultimate wound on the poor creature. Even among his own kind, he is alone.
I love dead. Hate living.
Wales' monster is a tragic figure, but in a very believable and recognisable way. His nature is less of a problem than his appearance, giving him more in common with Lon Chaney's Hunchback than Lugosi's vampire. The Bride of Frankenstein certainly gets under our skin, but the fear it leaves us with is not that we might be murdered in our beds by a monster, but that we might end up alone like one. The film ends with the mad scientist's lab destroyed, killing the monsters within.
We belong dead.
But after another 4-year hiatus, Universal, badly in need of a hit,
There was a time when our village was prosperous and happy. Look at it now.
resurrected its most popular creation for Son of Frankenstein.
And now we go to the railway station to welcome another Frankenstein.
By now, Colin Clive, who played the Doctor in the first 2 films, was dead,
To you, sir.
while Whale, in a career slump of his own, was disinterested in horror. So Basil Rathbone entered as the eponymous son,
He's alive!
and Roland V. Lee stepped in as director. The stylistic difference is immediately obvious as the sets change from dark Gothic to borderline surreal, expressionist staircases arcing through blank interiors and angular hallways recalling the cabinet of Dr. Caligari. It's a very different world, but that's not a criticism. Lee makes the story his own, and this is arguably the classiest Frankenstein movie, although it does include the series' most annoying child,
I hope I don't have tea like that.
and a character who, through no fault of his own, has become hilarious thanks to Mel Brooks' young Frankenstein.
Inspector Crow, District Police.
Lee also built up the character of Igor, played by Bela Lugosi.
They said I was dead. Then they cut me down.
He is the monster's friend, the film's absolute highlight, and arguably the best role of Lugosi's career.
Hey! You spit on me!
I'm sorry, I coughed. You see, bone gets stuck in my throat.
Where Lee does trip up is where Whale excelled. The creature does not appear for the first 30 minutes and does not move for another 25. He is mute again at Karloff's insistence, but more importantly, he has no plotline of his own. Karloff's performance remains sympathetic, but without a sympathetic story, the creature is little more than a plot device, used as a weapon by the vengeful Igor.
8 men say Igor hanged. Now 8 men dead. All dead.
Worse still, he has been shorn of his most vital characteristic.
He's completely superhuman.
With the monster no longer human, the toying in God's domain horror is gone, replaced by simple murder. His tragic humanity, which drove the first 2 films, is all but absent, except in one moment when he loses his friend. In one anguished howl, used by Universal in other films for years to come, Karloff reminds us why we loved this monster in the first place. Although the monster plunges into a pit of sulphur at the end, it was now clear that nothing could keep him dead. Karloff, however, had turned 51 during filming and had no interest in playing the role again. If the franchise was to continue, it would need a new star.
It's the curse. The curse of Frankenstein.
Lon Chaney Jr. had initially performed under his real name of Creighton Chaney, but an enterprising producer insisted he change it to cash in on the legacy of his famous father. And Universal had similar ideas when they cast him in 1939's The Wolfman. Chaney excelled in the role, and when a new monster was needed for the ghost of Frankenstein, he stepped into Karloff's massive shoes. A flashback to the original, with Chaney's plumper, less cadaverous face replacing Karloff's, reinforces the transition. Despite the character's death in Son of Frankenstein,
But Igor does not die that easily.
Bela Lugosi returned as Igor and is once again the film's highlight.
How does it feel to face a man you thought your brother killed, Doctor?
He is also now the story's driving force. He wants another son of Frankenstein, Ludwig, played by Cedric Hardwicke, to put Igor's brain into the monster's body.
My brain and his body together.
Giving him strength.
And everlasting life.
With this and his other goal,
We would rule the state and even the whole country.
the series veers more into B-movie themes.
But how? It's not subject to the ordinary laws of life.
Chaney's monster is far less nuanced than Karloff's soulful creature. But a shadow of that creature remains in the monster's affinity for children.
Can you get my ball?
He even wants to be one, a goal he tries to achieve by asking for the brain of a little girl to be put into his body. This is the film's finest moment, because it reveals how the monster sees the world. His desire to be a child is sweetly naive, but he can only imagine it in horrific and grotesque fashion. That is his life experience. How else should he see the world? Ghost of Frankenstein feels like an ending and a beginning. Igor's brain goes into the monster,
I am Igor.
allowing it to talk again, but also rendering it blind.
I can't see.
The monster we knew, the abnormal brain afflicted by loneliness and coloured with childlike wonder, is now effectively dead, replaced by a more defiantly evil one,
I, Igor, will live forever.
which takes the series in a very different direction.
I've created 100 times the monster that my father made.
This is the last film in which the monster is anything approaching a lead character, and the last A picture of the series.
He cannot be destroyed.
From here on, it would be B-movies only, and following that trend, the gaps between the movies narrowed to one a year, starting with the none more B-movie title, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. In fact, this is far more a sequel to The Wolfman than a continuation of the Frankenstein story. Lon Chaney Jr.'s Lawrence Talbot is the lead. Maria Uspenskaya returns as gypsy woman Mileva.
It's not in my power to help you.
The script is by Wolfman scribe Kurt Siodmak.
Even a man who's pure at heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the moon is full and bright.
And the story follows Talbot and his quest to end his life.
I don't want to live through another spell.
To do this, he tracks down Elsa Frankenstein, daughter of Ludwig, who is not allowed to do science on account of her being a girl, so has her boyfriend step in.
I can't destroy Frankenstein's creation.
Talbot also discovers the monster, frozen beneath the castle in which he was last seen burning. This presented a problem, as Chaney could obviously not play both roles, but since Igor's mind was now in the creature, there was an obvious solution. And Bela Lugosi took on a role that he had rejected back in 1931. Unfortunately for him, this monster is very different from that he would have played then. Not only is the soul that defined him gone, but there is no sign of Igor in the monster either. He's even forgotten how to speak again. Most unfortunately for Lugosi, the plan to keep the monster blind was cut late in the day, so all his stumbling and groping about just make him look like a bad actor.
No, it's me.
The monster's relationship with Talbot has none of the desperate intensity of his brief friendships in the 4 previous films, meaning that the tragic loneliness that connected us to him is well and truly gone. It's as if Igor's brain has voided the creature's personality. Now the monster is just a monster. This is the series nadir, a plodding mess that exists only to bring the two characters together for a brief scrap at the end. The addition of a musical number doesn't help much either.
Tonight we toast our happy host.
This is also the film that established what we might call the UHU, the Universal Horror Universe, a mixing and matching of franchises which would define the rest of the series. The opening credits for House of Frankenstein are immediately promising, and Karloff re-enters the series with a bang. As Frankenstein wannabe Dr. Niemann.
He was a genius in whose footsteps I will follow when I get out of here.
Still, this is Universal further plundering their back catalogue and throwing everything at the screen. Dracula, the Frankenstein monster, the Wolfman, a mad scientist.
Increase your mega voltage to 100,000.
This hunchback falling in love with a gypsy dancer even recalls the Hunchback of Notre Dame. But John Carradine's Dracula, a character last seen in Son of Dracula, played by, you guessed it, Lon Chaney Jr., and bringing in yet another franchise, is a stunningly weak character.
I will do whatever you wish.
Who dies 25 minutes in what feels like the end of a whole other film. These characters never appear again. This is more like 2 short films than 1 feature. Karloff and friend continue searching for the notebooks of Dr. Frankenstein, and they happen upon the Wolfman and the monster, frozen again, this time after drowning.
We'll set them free, and they will help us.
A plan that works far better than it deserves to.
I can help you.
How?
The monster is now played by Glenn Strange, and takes so small a part in proceedings that Strange isn't even in the opening credits. If Frankenstein meets the Wolfman sidelined the monster, here he is barely even a character in his own franchise. As a standalone film, this is an improvement on the last one, with Karloff adding class.
I'm going to give you the brain of the Wolfman, so that all your waking hours will be spent in untold agony.
And Chaney's Talbot providing the missing pathos.
Last night I killed a man.
But it does nothing to rekindle the best of the series and has little to say. Most damningly, the film sides with gypsy heroine Ilonka when she rejects the hunchback on account of his deformity.
And you're ugly. I hate you. I hate you.
A sharp contradiction to the message the original film had of not judging by appearance. The monster, meanwhile, dies in a swamp, dragging Karloff with it. This would be his last appearance in the series. By this time, Universal no longer even bothered to explain the resurrections that kept its series alive, so it's no surprise to see John Carradine's Dracula showing up early in House of Dracula. But the central plot here is genuinely interesting and original, and perhaps reflective of a wartime malaise. Dracula, tired of being a monster, comes to Dr. Edelman, seeking a cure for his vampirism.
That's why I've come to you. To seek release from a curse of misery and horror against which I'm powerless to fight alone.
But he struggles to fight the needs of the demon within.
Cast away the cross so that you may join me there.
True, the mixture of science and mythology veers dangerously into midichlorian territory.
An examination of your blood reveals the presence of a peculiar parasite.
But giving the demonic Dracula a more sympathetic plotline is a bold move with some very effective moments.
Never heard this music before, yet I'm playing it.
The film might have been better off sticking with that, but now committed to the UHU, it's not long before Larry Talbot rocks up with no explanation for why he's alive.
In the hope that you could help me.
And blow me down, who's this in the basement?
The Frankenstein monster.
Dr. Edelman, with the help of a female hunchbacked assistant,
Think what it will mean to thousands of people all over the world.
Seems to be running a clinic for monsters whom he can cure with plant mould.
This hybrid plant, Bavaria formosa, produces a mold from which we've been able to distill Well, a substance which possesses the property of softening any hard structure composed of calcium salts.
How B-movie is that?
Secret of immortality shall soon be mine.
Needless to say, the film never lives up to its intriguing premise. Dracula is killed when someone moves his coffin in front of the window. And the monster plays next to no role in the story. But at least Larry Talbot is finally cured in what can be more accurately seen as the 4th Wolfman film rather than the 7th Frankenstein. The franchise's one constant has been the torch-wielding mob.
It's a matter for us to handle, unless we all want to be murdered.
So it's appropriate that they take down the monster one last time. The creature gets the final shot of the movie, but the footage is taken from Ghost of Frankenstein, cost-cutting, doing the monster out of his death scene. And this time that death would stick. There would be no more sequels.
Answer that phone. Answer the bell. Answer the phone.
Or at least, not really. Whether Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein is really part of the Universal canon is a contentious question.
What we need today is young bloods and brains.
The series is filled with inconsistencies. Lionel Atwill plays 5 different characters in 5 films.
Hello. I thought that in my position as mayor...
It is no concern of yours.
And Frankenstein's notes hop from hiding place to hiding place, seemingly at will. But even by its own low standards, this doesn't follow on at all. Poor Larry Talbot is a wolfman again. The monster has relearned speech.
Master.
And Dracula looks like Bela Lugosi for the first time in 18 years. And has apparently ditched the self-improvement kick he was on.
Dracula is Dracula, and Sandra's going to use my brain to make a bigger dummy out of the other dummy.
This is one of the best Abbott and Costello films, but as part of the horror cycle, it serves only as a full stop, killing it stone dead. It's a sad ending, but the fact that Universal had long since ceased to care about their once sublime creations is underlined by the title. Abbott and Costello don't meet Frankenstein. It's Frankenstein's monster, guys.
He can't get in.
However much it defined the law of diminishing returns, and Marvel should probably take note of what happens when you start churning out films year after year, the Frankenstein series also showed the possibilities of genre filmmaking. The films left an obvious legacy in their visuals. You only have to look at the work of Tim Burton to see that influence in action. But they also made it clear that fantasy can be about the real world. Whenever the X-Men franchise deals with prejudice and our fear of those who are different, whenever Planet of the Apes tackles politics and the class system, more pointedly for horror fans, when a film like The Girl with All the Gifts takes horror to a more thought-provoking but no less scary place, there we see the real legacy of Frankenstein. Horror should make you scared, but it can also make you think. Maybe it can even make you a better person. Don't judge people on how they look. The ones who look like monsters aren't always the ones you should be scared of. Let us know your favourite Frankenstein scenes in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for new videos every Tuesday and Saturday. Thanks for watching.